Unbelievably erotic, says the Times.
Come on, don't hang about.
Why does the lady need pictures of a man on a medieval torture device? And why does she leave him suspended over the dread Spanish horse?
Perfect, dear boy. Quite perfect.
Tales of the Bizarre. Rated R.
What happens when you combine Amicus-style anthology film, William S. Burroughs cut-up techniques, 1970s philosophy, British men's magazines, and throw in a mummy? Well, then you get Bizarre, which is our movie for this week on BNS About Movies. Also known as Secrets of Sex, this film starts off with the story of a king who found his wife's lover and trapped him in a chest. And that theme of trapping lovers into things really ties in throughout the entire film. But for now, let's just worry about our narrator, a mummy voiced by Valentine Dyall from The Haunting, Bedazzled, and the voice of Count Karnstein in Lust for a Vampire. He's here to tell us about the battle of the sexes.
Imagine you were making love to this girl. Imagine you were making love to this boy. Imagine you were making love to this girl. Imagine you were making love to this boy. Imagine you were making love to this girl. Imagine you were making love to this boy. Imagine you were making love to this girl. Imagine you were making love to this boy. Imagine you were making love to this girl. Imagine you were making love to this boy. Imagine you were making love to this girl. Imagine you were making love to this boy. Imagine this girl was making love to you. Imagine this boy was making love to you. Imagine this girl was making love to you. Imagine this boy was making love to you. Imagine this girl was making love to you. Imagine this boy was making love to you. Imagine this girl was making love to you. Imagine this boy was making love to you. Imagine this girl was making love to you. Imagine this boy was making love to you. Imagine this girl was making love to you. Imagine the consequences.
We go right into the front row of the battle of the sexes, with women in underwear facing off with men grasping machine guns. The women have vegetables thrown at them as the men advance, and one of the women, a blonde, stares down at the men, who follow to her beauty, and then she removes a straight razor from between her legs. All right, let's be perfectly honest. Your ability to enjoy Bizarre is going to totally depend on the amount of drugs in your system at the time, how late you're watching it, and your tolerance for 70s experimental filmmaking. Or if you're like me, you're just going to love it. The vignettes that follow in this movie, which include two female photographers castrating a male model at breakfast, an old man looking for a son, a female burglar being caught by the owner of a house, a nerd trying to get Sue Bond, who was one of the longest-running Benny Hill girls, to sleep with him and his lizard, the adventures of Lindy Lay, a character from Mayfair magazine, an old woman who traps men's souls in flowers, and an old man who wants a son from his young wife. None of these stories follow a tradition of narrative structure. But it makes sense because one of the uncredited writers of this film was Brian Geisen, who is credited with inventing the cut and paste technique, where random words are cut up and rearranged to create a new text. Sure, that's something that happened in Dada, but Burroughs always credited Geisen for coming up with this and helping him to learn how to do it within his writing. Finally, those two big armies amassed at the beginning just end up sleeping together, and it's mostly people rolling around on hay bales more than anything dirty. This movie has a strange late 60s, early 70s naive quality to it. It's not sleazy as much as it wants to be. Obviously, this movie was cut up, though. Not the cut-up technique, but it was cut apart by censors. 9 minutes were taken from the UK cut, and the re-edited US version, Tales of the Bizarre, has 17 minutes missing. But what's missing isn't really that bad. Bizarre was directed by Anthony Balch, a lifelong Bela Lugosi fan. He even met Lugosi during his 50s tour of the Dracula stage play. He was also the distributor of European art films that he retitled with lurid aplomb, including 1971's satanic masterpiece, Don't Deliver Us from Evil. He also created the sound version of 1922's Haxan and directed Horror Hospital, By all accounts, he was a pretty over-the-top guy. At parties, he would just walk in and start walking all over people's furniture. He had public outbursts, and he's in this movie. You can see him at the end just for a couple seconds. But really, I'm at a loss to describe this movie to you because it's not sexy. It's not shocking anymore. It's kind of charming. It wears its influences on its sleeves. It's like very hip for the 70s. It's Herman Hesse, Albert Camus. It's like you just went away to college and you want to impress a smart girl that comes to your dorm room. That's kind of what this movie is. But also, you're kind of hiding an issue of Mayfair or a page 3 girl poster in your room. I'm using British terms for this, but it is a British movie. I can't hate this movie because it has scenes like a dinosaur spies on a peeping Tom, there's a sex scene that's intercut with airplane footage, and a mummy telling us the secrets of the war between the sexes. Just look at the American poster for Tales of the Bizarre. Dead for 1,000 years, he rose from the crypt to reveal strange and sinister passions. Bizarre was released in the U.S. by the Fanfare Corporation, the same guys that brought Playgirls and the Vampire and Tower of Evil to America. And Tower of Evil needed a co-feature, so they cut out the 17 minutes and stressed the horror rather than sexy elements of the movie. And that's why the movie was retitled Tales of the Bizarre and played as a second feature with Tower of Evil, as well as a third feature to Werewolves on Wheels and Simon King of the Witches. Wow, if only I could have been in the theater for that movie. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about movies, come to bnsaboutmovies.com or reach out to me at bnsaboutmovies@gmail.com. See you next week.